What's up guys, I'm Ettore and today I'm going to teach you how to clean your oven using just baking soda and vinegar. So my last video about how to clean pans was a huge success and I'm going to try to keep that trend going with how to clean your oven. So I don't use my oven too much, but the previous owner left it super dirty. As you can see here, it's just covered in grime, and with a little bit of baking soda, vinegar, and elbow grease, I was able to get most of it off. I was personally pretty impressed with the results, so I wanted to share them with you. That being said, let's just jump right into the materials. So for this project, we will need baking soda, some white vinegar, some water, rubber gloves to protect our hands, a brush, a bottle to spray the vinegar, and a cup for mixing the baking soda and water together. We will also use some steel wool or brillo pad, any sort of steel scrubbing, and an old towel just to clean up the mess as we go along. Now that we got all the materials ready, we can prepare for the cleaning. So we're going to start off by removing the racks. That'll give us more room to work with, and then we're going to lightly scrub all of the light dirt that we can get off. It is pretty dusty, and this prevents the baking soda and water from really bonding with the dirt. So we really want to get as much of the loose stuff off as possible beforehand. Now that we've prepared our oven, we can start mixing the baking soda and water. So you guys are always asking me about my measurements, how much I use and things like that, and how much time I let things sit. And the truth is that I kind of eyeball everything. I tried to measure for you guys here, but it actually ended up being very time consuming and I lost track. I think the best way to go about this is really to look out for the consistency. You want to go for kind of like a glue type consistency, kind of like Elmer's glue, something pretty thick. Once we mixed our baking soda and water, we can start spreading it with our brush. I just bought this brush from the dollar store. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You just want to make sure that you have pretty even distribution of the baking soda all around the oven. Make sure to cover spots that have extra dirt on them. In my case, the oven door was by far the dirtiest part, so I made sure to cover all spots there. The back was pretty dirty, as well as the top and the sides, so I made sure to cover them as I could. Watch out for the sides and top because they are pretty drippy, so perhaps in these areas you want to use a little bit thicker consistency so that it doesn't drip as much. And as you can see here, we have all of our areas covered, and you can already see a lot coming off because it has turned our baking soda quite brown and gross. So now that we spread our baking soda all around our oven, we're going to let it sit for a couple hours, give it a chance to react and dry up a little bit. And in the meantime, we can prepare our spray bottle with vinegar. I also bought this spray bottle from the dollar store, and I'd say it's pretty good. I would say that you can fill up the bottle as much as you like with vinegar because you can always pour whatever's left over back into the bottle later. Next, we're going to spread the vinegar all around the oven and make it react with the baking soda. As you do this, you will hear a very satisfying fizzing sound, and you'll see the reaction take place. You'll see a whole bunch of bubbling and fizzing, and it is actually quite cool and fun to do. So I'm just trying to spray it all around, get a nice even distribution of the vinegar, and give it a little bit of chance to react before we get into the scrubbing phase. So by far the hardest and most time-consuming part of this project is the actual scrubbing of the grease. For this, you definitely want to put on your rubber gloves because we are dealing with a lot of baking soda, vinegar, things that can really dry up your hands or harm them. So just make sure to put those on before you start scrubbing. I started off using the green side of a sponge, and I quickly realized that that was doing a lot. It was doing a really good job, but it wasn't quite enough for what I needed because my oven was very dirty and very greasy. Years and years of grease were stuck on there. And that's why I transitioned to the steel wool Brillo pad later. But the green side of the sponge really did a lot of work here. You can see that it is already looking much, much better than it did before. You'll also see that periodically I bring in the towel with some hot water to help clean up as I go along, to actually remove some of the baking soda and grime mix. So my technique was to just scrub, get everything detached from the actual oven, and then I soak it up with the towel and hot water. And I found that to be pretty effective. As you can see, after I wipe with the towel, it is looking a lot better. And I was shocked at how much grease was coming off as I did this. As I did this, I saw some areas that still needed a little bit more work, and this is where I realized that I wanted to do another round of baking soda. While I was very happy and impressed with the initial results, I knew I could do a lot better by doing another round of baking soda. This time I used a much thicker consistency. Last time I only let it sit for a couple hours, but this time I really made sure to get a thicker consistency and let it sit overnight. As you can see, it is much more white this time around. I still feel like the first round was necessary for getting a lot of the bulk out of the way, and this round I'll be able to really get the more troubled spots off. This time I let it dry overnight instead of just a couple hours, and the next morning it was all dried up. Then I came in with my vinegar and I started spraying. And as I sprayed, I saw so much fizzing. It was incredible. And here we can zoom up close so you can see the reaction. As I spray, it'll fizz up and bubble, and this is really what gets the grime off. I also decided to do one area at a time, and I started applying a lot more pressure with the sponge. I found this part of the project very satisfying because you just spray a little bit and you immediately get that fizzing going on. And then as you go in with your sponge, you see so much more come off, and you just see your oven get cleaner and cleaner as you go along. Especially here with the glass panel, you can see that it got very fizzy, and you can see it working and the reaction taking place. In my case, no matter how much I cleaned the glass panel, it kept on staying dirty, and then I realized that there was actually grease between the two panels of glass that I could not reach without taking my oven apart. So I got it as clean as I could, but it's still not perfect because it is actually inside the two panes of glass, which was a little disappointing to see, but before I couldn't even look through the glass at all, so I'm just shocked that I can do it now. It just looks so much better than it did before. So while it's not perfect, it's still a massive improvement. And just like last time, I came in with my towel and hot water to clean up anything that I might have left behind and get some of the baking soda out of there. So I just passed the towel, and here I see that the glass is just so much more clear. If you remember, you could barely see through it before, and now you actually can, which was really nice to see. So scrubbing is the name of the game for this project. You're going to have to do a lot of scrubbing and cleaning, and it is worth it. It is well worth it to apply a lot of pressure and do a lot of scrubbing, because the more you scrub, the more you get off. So while it is a very long, daunting task, it does make a big difference. As you see here, as I clean up with the sponge, it's just much cleaner than it was before. I could go on and do more iterations, but I was happy with the results at this point. That being said, I'm done with the project at this point. Even though there are some dirty spots, it's still a massive improvement from before, and I highly recommend that you take before pictures when you do this, because it can be a little hard to remember how bad it looked previously. And as you can see now, it is much cleaner and more presentable. If I were to do this project again, I would mix a lot more baking soda and water from the beginning. I saw myself going back and having to add more baking soda and water as I was trying to spread it all around. I really underestimated how much I needed, so I would do a lot more from the beginning so that I wouldn't have to take a pause, go back, make more mixture, then spread it again. So I would just try to overshoot with the baking soda and water, because the more you add, the better it goes, in my opinion. I would also use the steel wood. I would also use the steel wool from the beginning instead of the sponge, because I found that it was so much more effective with my oven. Using the harder scrubbing pad like the steel wool made it so that you needed to apply less pressure when scrubbing, and really saves energy and time. So I would definitely recommend using steel wool to scrub. But depending on your oven, I don't know what types of ovens there are out there, make sure that you're not actually damaging the oven with the steel wool. In my case, I did a little bit of testing. I saw that the steel wool wasn't scratching or anything, and I decided to do the whole thing. But I'm not familiar with every oven out there, so I would recommend you do a little bit of testing first before you commit to actually scratching up your whole oven. And that's about it for this video. I hope it helped you if you're looking to clean your oven, or maybe give you a little bit more confidence to take on the project. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you have anything to say, please leave a comment. And if you want to see more of me in the future, please consider subscribing. Thanks. Bye.